Do you ever get the feeling when you're trying to solo over a 2-5-1 that there's just something that's missing? You've learnt your arpeggios, you've even figured out how to use chromaticism to sort of bury those arpeggios, but when you get to that 5 chord, there's something about what you're doing that just lacks something. It lacks the sense of tension that you sometimes hear when you listen to great jazz players. Well, the good news is that there's a really simple trick for playing over that 5 chord and creating that sense of tension. It involves just 4 notes, specifically using a diminished 7th arpeggio. So in this video, I'm going to teach you that trick. I'm going to teach you a lick that introduces you to these diminished 7th arpeggios, but I'm also going to show you a trick for figuring out which diminished 7th chord you need to arpeggiate depending on which key you're in. So check this out. So the lines I'm going to show you here are going to be over a 2-5-1. We're in the key of C, so the chords that we're going to be working over are D minor 7 to G7 and finally resolving to C major 7. I'm going to show you what I'm doing over the 2 chord, and I'm going to show you what I'm doing over the 5 chord, specifically paying attention to what I'm doing over the 5 chord and showing you this diminished arpeggio, diminished 7th arpeggio that you can use really over any 5 chord in any key. So here's the lick. So you could hear when I got to that 5 chord that there was a little bit of dissonance, there was a little bit of tension that you don't always get from simply arpeggiating the notes of the 5 chord. I was actually arpeggiating 3 of the notes of the 5 chord. I was playing the 3rd, the 5th and the 7th of that 5 chord, but the way that I was doing it and the extra note that I was adding created a sense of tension, which I'm going to walk you through in a minute. I'm going to explain why. But I want to start first of all on the 2 chord. I'm starting off with a D minor 7 arpeggio, but I'm leaving out the 7th. I'm just playing the 3rd, the 5th and the root. Then if you bar strings 1, 2 and 3 at the 10th fret, that actually gives you the 3rd, the 5th and the root of the D minor. If you want to add the 7th, you can actually bar the 4th string at the same fret, and that gives you an inversion of the D minor 7 chord. But I'm not going to worry about the 7th. I'm just going to play the 3rd, the 5th and the root, and I'm playing it almost like a rake, kind of quickly. Okay, so that rhythm is important. I go up to this 12th fret on the 1st string. That actually gives us the 9th of the D minor 7 chord. So that's going to sound pretty cool over the D minor 7 chord. Okay. I then go up to the 13th fret and then back down to the 12th fret. Then I slide up to the 15th fret and then back down to the 13th fret, back down to the 12th fret, back up to the 13th fret and back down to the 12th fret. So that little lick over the D minor 7 chord goes like this. That's the phrasing that you want. You can hear it's just got that swing to it to do with the way that I'm phrasing it. I only play that once. I'm playing it a few times here just so that you can see it. And when I've done that, we're almost ready to move on to our 5 chord. Before we move on to our 5 chord, right at the tail end of the D minor 7, just before it changes, I'm playing the 11th fret of the 2nd string, okay? And then that allows me to walk up to the 12th fret as we hit in to the G7 chord, to that dominant chord, okay? And you can hear how that lick is effectively spelling out the changes. So once I've done that, I'm on the 12th fret, which is the 3rd of my 5 chord. It's a B, which is the 3rd of the G7 chord, okay? And once I have done that, once I'm at that 3rd, I'm going to play this. Okay, and this is the trick that I want to show you for dominant seventh chords and how to solo over dominant seventh chords. What we've got here in this arpeggio is B, which is the third of the G7 chord, D, which is the fifth of the G7 chord, and then F, which is our flat seventh. Those notes are, as I've just said, all in the G7 chord, but when you hear that, you can hear that it sounds slightly dissonant. And here's the trick that I want you to learn and to keep in mind. When you go to a dominant chord, if you take the third of that dominant chord, so in the case of G7, that third is B, but whatever the chord is, work out what the third in the chord is, and then just play the third, the fifth, and the seventh of that chord, and that will give you a diminished triad. So what we've got here is a B diminished chord arpeggio, and that's going to sound good over our dominant seventh chord. If you then go up from this note here another 1, 2, 3 frets, you get a diminished seventh arpeggio, a B diminished seventh arpeggio in this case. Okay? And the seventh note on that B diminished seventh arpeggio is a flat 9 on the dominant chord. So if we were going to put a flat 9 on our G7 chord, which would sound good on a dominant chord because it creates a lot of dissonance, that note there is the note that we would need. And you can hear that it sounds very dissonant even when I'm playing it without the chords behind it. What's important here is the way that I'm playing it. You need to play it so that it swings a bit. So if I just were to play it like this, it just sounds boring, it sounds horrible. Frankly, it sounds like a car alarm. But if we were to play it like this, you can hear that it has more of a swing. So what I'm doing here in order to kind of bury this arpeggio so it's not too obvious what I'm doing is I'm using a pedal point, and that pedal point is the fifth of the G7 chord, okay? Which is our D. So I'm going from the 12th fret, sliding up to the 15th fret on the second string, and then on the first string I'm going fret 13, but then back on to the 15th fret of the second string. Then I'm bringing in this seventh of the diminished arpeggio, which is this note here, which is the 16th fret of the first string, then back on to the 15th fret of the second string, back down to the 13th fret of the first string, back on to the 15th fret of the second string, okay? It just breaks it up, that pedal point just breaks that sort of arpeggio up and gives it more of a swing. And then back onto it, and then finally, as it resolves to the C, I'm hitting in to my 12th fret of my first string, which is also the third of the C major chord. So that's also going to work, that's also going to sound good. So the whole lick goes like this. I'll play that once more for you. And there you have it, a nice simple 4-note arpeggio, 3 notes already in the dominant chord, but that's going to really spice up what you're playing over that dominant chord. It's going to sound gnarly, it's going to sound tense and dissonant, and then it's going to resolve nicely to the third of that C major 7. So I hope that's been useful. The thing to remember is simply if you take the third of your dominant chord and you play a diminished 7th arpeggio starting on the third of the chord, that's going to sound good over that dominant chord, okay? Doesn't matter what key you're in, just figure out what the third of the 5 chord is, the third of the dominant chord, and then do a diminished 7th arpeggio starting on that third. It's going to sound dissonant, it's going to sound gnarly, it's going to sound good. If you can break it up with a bit of chromaticism or a pedal point like I just showed you, that's going to sound even better. So if that's been useful, feel free to drop me a like, hit the subscribe button, drop a comment as well, let me know how you're getting on, and until next time, Take it easy.